Imagine a family living completely hidden for 42 years, or a tiger plotting revenge for days outside a hunter's cabin, and 9 hikers mysteriously fleeing their tent at night, leaving everything behind. These aren't movie plots. They're real stories from one of Earth's wildest places. Join us to uncover these incredible true tales and more. But before we jump in, the details in this video are disturbing and may not be suitable for all audiences, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. As always, remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date with the channel. Alright, let's dive into the video. In 1936, Karp Lykov made a life-changing decision that would take his family into complete isolation. He was part of the Old Believers, a deeply religious group persecuted in the Soviet Union. When his brother was killed by Soviet authorities, Karp knew he had to act. He took his wife, Akulina, and their 2 young children, Savan and Natalia, into the remote Siberian taiga to escape the threats and preserve their way of life. The Lykovs found a hidden spot deep in the forest near the Yerenat River, far from any human settlement. Over time, the family grew with the birth of 2 more children, Dmitry and Agafia, who were born in total isolation. The family built a small cabin from logs and lived off the land. They hunted, gathered wild plants, and planted small gardens with potatoes and rye. Life was hard, especially during the brutal Siberian winters. Food was often scarce, and survival became a daily battle. The family's existence was completely unknown to the outside world until 1978. That year, a group of Soviet geologists was conducting surveys in the region. A helicopter pilot noticed clearings in the dense forest, and the team decided to investigate. What they found shocked them. They stumbled upon the Lykovs, a family that had been living in isolation for over 40 years. When the geologists approached, the Lykovs were cautious. They had not seen other humans in decades. Slowly, they began to trust the visitors. The geologists were amazed by the family's resilience. They had survived without modern tools or supplies, relying entirely on their ingenuity and faith. The Lykovs were so isolated that they had no idea World War II had even happened. The geologists offered the family supplies like clothes, salt, and food. At first, the Lykovs were hesitant to accept, but they eventually took what was given. Despite this contact with the modern world, the family refused to leave their home in the forest. They valued their independence and the religious freedom they had fought so hard to protect. The geologists respected their choice and visited occasionally to check on them. Life in the wilderness, however, came at a heavy cost. In 1961, Akulina died during a harsh winter. She had given her share of food to her children, sacrificing herself to keep them alive. Tragedy struck again in 1981. Savan and Natalia both died of kidney failure, likely caused by their limited diet. Dmitry, the family's most skilled hunter, died the same year from pneumonia. Karp Lykov lived until 1988, leaving Agafia as the only surviving member of the family. Agafia's story touched the hearts of people around the world. The Lykovs' tale of survival became widely known through journalist Vasily Peskov, who wrote a series of articles about them. His book, Lost in the Taiga, gave a detailed account of their incredible lives. Readers were captivated by the family's strength and commitment to their beliefs. Their story was seen as both inspiring and heartbreaking. Today, Agafia continues to live in the Siberian taiga. She has remained true to the lifestyle her family chose, even as the modern world has crept closer. Occasionally, visitors bring her supplies or help with health issues. In 2016, she was flown to a hospital for medical treatment, but returned to her remote home as soon as she recovered. She believes that her place is in the wilderness, where her family's story began. While Agafia chose to stay hidden in the forest to protect her family, Vladimir Markov would find himself trapped in these same woods, where a deadly enemy was waiting for him. In December 1997, Vladimir Markov, a poacher living in Russia's Far East, found himself in a situation no one could have imagined. He lived near the remote forests of the Primorye region, an area known for its harsh winters and wild predators. What happened to Markov would become one of the most shocking and mysterious tales of human and animal interaction. Markov had been struggling financially, like many in the region, and turned to poaching as a way to survive. On one of his expeditions, he crossed paths with a creature he should never have underestimated, an Amur tiger. Also known as the Siberian tiger, this majestic predator is one of the largest and most powerful cats in the world. Markov didn't just encounter the tiger. He shot and wounded it, an act that would seal his fate. To make matters worse, Markov stole part of the tiger's recent kill, a wild boar. In a harsh wilderness, every meal is vital for survival, especially for an injured predator. The tiger, however, did not forget. It tracked Markov back to his cabin, which was about 11 kilometers away. What makes this story so unbelievable is the tiger's behavior. It didn't simply follow him. It carefully planned what would happen next. When the tiger arrived at Markov's cabin, it didn't attack immediately. It destroyed anything that carried Markov's scent, including tools and belongings around the cabin. The tiger then waited, showing patience and determination rarely seen in the animal world. Experts later estimated that the tiger might have waited for up to 2 days. It was as if the tiger knew its target would eventually return. Markov came back to his cabin unaware of the danger waiting for him. As soon as he stepped inside, the tiger launched its attack. It killed him almost instantly, dragging his body into the nearby woods. When investigators arrived later, they found evidence that matched this chilling sequence of events. The tiger's deliberate actions left no doubt about its intent. But the story didn't end there. News of Markov's death spread quickly, and authorities launched an investigation. Yuri Trush, the head of Inspection Tiger, a local anti-poaching unit, led the efforts. His team pieced together the details of the incident, revealing the tiger's calculated behavior. The case stunned experts and the public alike. It wasn't just a random attack. It seemed like the tiger was seeking retribution. This incident raised many questions. How could an animal display such focused behavior? Was this an act of instinct or something more? The tiger's actions seemed to defy what people thought they knew about wildlife. It tracked a specific person, destroyed his belongings, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. For many, this was not just a story about a wild animal. It was a story about nature's power and unpredictability. Markov's death also highlighted the risks of poaching and the fragile balance between humans and wildlife. In the Far East, where resources are scarce, both people and animals struggle to survive. Poachers like Markov often see no other option, but their actions can have dire consequences. This case became a haunting reminder of what can happen when that balance is disrupted. The media latched onto the story, and it quickly gained international attention. People were fascinated and horrified by the idea of a tiger seeking revenge. Wildlife documentaries and news outlets covered the event, making it one of the most talked about animal attacks in recent history. Years later, the story was immortalized in John Vaillant's book, The Tiger, A True Story of Vengeance and Survival. The book explored not only Markov's death, but also the broader conflict between humans and tigers in the region. Conservationists saw this tragedy as a wake-up call. The Amur tiger is an endangered species, with only a few hundred left in the wild. Their survival depends on protecting their natural habitats and reducing human conflict. Organizations like Inspection Tiger work tirelessly to combat poaching and preserve this delicate balance. Markov's story became a powerful example of why these efforts are so important. Just as the tiger showed how deadly the forest could be, another story would make people wonder what dark secrets these woods held when Colin Madsen walked into the night and never came back. In March 2016, Colin Madsen, a 25-year-old American student, vanished in the Siberian wilderness. His disappearance shocked everyone and raised many unanswered questions. Colin was not just another tourist. He was a bright student from Jefferson City, Missouri, studying at Irkutsk State Linguistic University in Russia. He loved the country, spoke fluent Russian, and had a passion for hiking in Siberia's wild landscapes. Colin and his friends decided to take a trip to Arshan, a small village in the Buryatia region, known for its natural beauty and mountains. They planned to hike in the Sion Mountains, a breathtaking but challenging area. On March 26th, Colin and his group, which included 2 Russian friends and another American, reached a guest house in Arshan. They went to bed late that night, planning to wake up early for the hike. By the next morning, Colin was gone. His friends woke up around 5 a.m., ready to start their adventure, but Colin was nowhere to be found. His belongings were still in the guest house. His backpack, money, and important documents were untouched. Even more puzzling, he had left wearing only light clothes despite the freezing temperatures outside. His friends searched the village and nearby areas, but there was no sign of him. They reported him missing to the local authorities later that day. The search for Colin began immediately. Rescue teams, volunteers, and even national park staff joined the effort. They combed through the dense forests and rugged terrain around Arshan. Helicopters and drones were brought in to help, but the area's rough landscape made the search incredibly difficult. For over a week, there were no leads. The situation seemed hopeless. On April 4th, searchers made a grim discovery. Colin's body was found in a wooded area about 1.5 kilometers from the guest house. He had no visible injuries, and his belongings, including his money, were still with him. This ruled out robbery. The first theory suggested that Colin had died from hypothermia. The freezing Siberian nights were brutal, and without proper clothing, survival would have been nearly impossible. But things didn't add up. Colin was an experienced hiker who knew how to handle the cold. His family and friends questioned why he would leave the guest house without warm clothes or supplies. The circumstances of his death left everyone puzzled. Russian authorities launched an investigation. They treated it as a possible murder case, which is standard in unexplained deaths. Forensic exams and toxicology tests were conducted. Investigators noted that Colin's group had reportedly used drugs the day before his disappearance, but they did not elaborate on what kind or how it might have affected him. This statement raised eyebrows but provided little clarity. Colin's mother, Dana Calcutt, traveled to Arshan to help in the search and later to demand answers. She was not convinced by the official explanations. Dana believed something more sinister had happened. She suspected foul play and felt that local authorities might be hiding the truth. Her suspicions only grew when she learned that some details about the case seemed vague or incomplete. In 2017, Dana commissioned a separate investigation by American forensic experts. Their findings added more mystery. The report suggested that Colin might have been involved in a physical struggle before his death. They found evidence of injuries that didn't match the hypothermia theory. This raised questions about whether Colin had been attacked or if something else entirely had occurred. Media coverage of Colin's case was extensive, both in Russia and the United States. The story of a young, adventurous American disappearing in the Siberian wilderness captured global attention. People speculated about what could have happened. Some pointed to the dangers of hiking in such a remote area. Others wondered if Colin had been a victim of crime or an accident that spiraled out of control. The lack of clear answers kept the mystery alive. Before we continue on, if you are enjoying the story so far, please hit that like button. And if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments. Your support truly means everything. All right, back to the video. In 1959, 9 young hikers set off on an adventure in the Ural Mountains of Russia. They were from the Ural Polytechnical Institute and led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old student. Their goal was to reach a remote mountain called Otorten. These hikers were experienced, confident, and prepared for the cold. But what happened next remains one of the most chilling mysteries of all time. The group began their journey on January 27, 1959. There were 10 hikers at first, but one of them, Yuri Yudin, fell ill and had to turn back. He would later say that this illness saved his life. The remaining 9 continued their trek, full of excitement and unaware of the horror that awaited them. On February 1st, the group made camp on a mountain slope called Kholat Syakhl. The name means dead mountain in the local Mansai language. That night, something went terribly wrong. Weeks passed and the hikers did not return. Their families grew worried and demanded a search. Rescue teams were sent out on February 20th. After days of searching, they found the hikers' tent on February 26th. It was the first clue, but it only deepened the mystery. The tent was slashed open from the inside. Inside, all their belongings, including warm clothing and boots, were left behind. The scene suggested the hikers had fled in a hurry, but why? Footprints led rescuers from the tent to the edge of a nearby forest. There, under a large cedar tree, they found the first 2 bodies. The hikers were only wearing underwear and no shoes. Nearby, there was evidence of a small fire and broken branches up to 5 meters high. It looked like they had tried to climb the tree, maybe to escape something or to see their tent. But what could have scared them so badly? As the search continued, more bodies were found. 3 hikers were discovered between the cedar tree and the tent. They seemed to be trying to crawl back to the tent, but never made it. The final 4 hikers were found 2 months later in a ravine further into the forest. Their condition added to the growing list of questions. Some had severe injuries like broken ribs and skull fractures, but no visible external wounds. One hiker was missing her tongue, and some were missing their eyes. To make things even stranger, traces of radiation were found on their clothing. The official investigation did little to clear up the confusion. Authorities ruled that the hikers died from an unknown compelling force. 6 of them had died from hypothermia, while 3 had died from their injuries. The strange details of the case, like the missing eyes and radiation, were left unexplained. The Soviet government closed the case quickly, which only fueled rumors and theories. Over the years, people have tried to figure out what happened. Some believe the group was caught in an avalanche, forcing them to cut their way out of the tent and flee. This theory explains why they left so quickly, but does not account for the strange injuries or the missing body parts. Others think they were victims of secret military tests. The area was known for testing weapons, and some locals reported seeing glowing lights in the sky that night. But there is no solid evidence to support this idea. Other theories range from the plausible to the bizarre. Some think a violent snowstorm caused them to panic and flee. Others blame wild animals, though there were no signs of animal attacks. UFOs and paranormal activity have also been suggested, especially because of the lights seen in the sky. Still, no theory fully explains all the strange details of the case. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the investigation, hoping to finally solve the mystery. In 2021, a team of researchers suggested a new version of the avalanche theory. They proposed that a slab of snow slid down and injured some of the hikers. The panic of the moment could have caused the group to leave the tent without proper clothing. Hypothermia might explain the missing tongue and eyes, as extreme cold can lead to tissue damage after death. While this theory answers some questions, it still leaves others unresolved. The Dyatlov Pass incident has fascinated and terrified people for decades. Books, documentaries, and movies have tried to piece together what happened that night. The story captures the imagination because it is so strange and tragic. 9 young people full of life were found dead in ways no one can fully explain. Their families never got the answers they deserved, and the case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of our time. But where 9 trained hikers lost their lives in the cold, a tiny 3-year-old boy would show us that sometimes the smallest survivors can beat the odds, as little Saren's story was about to prove. In September 2016, a 3-year-old boy named Saren Dobchut went missing in the Siberian taiga. He lived in a small village called Kut in the Tuva Republic, a remote region in Russia. The area is known for its freezing temperatures, dense forests, and dangerous wildlife, like wolves and bears. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. Saren disappeared on a Sunday while playing outside his home. He had been with his grandmother, who briefly lost sight of him. It is believed he followed a puppy into the thick forest. Within moments, he was gone. Panic set in as his family realized the dangers of the wilderness. The Siberian taiga is not a forgiving place. Nights are freezing, and wild animals roam freely. For a small child, the odds of survival seemed impossible. News of Saren's disappearance spread quickly. Over 100 people, including rescue teams and volunteers, joined the search. The community worked tirelessly, knowing every minute counted. But the terrain was treacherous with thick trees and uneven ground. The searchers also faced constant fear of running into wolves or bears. Despite their efforts, there was no sign of the boy on the first day. Now let's talk about Saren himself. This boy didn't just survive, he fought to stay alive. When he wandered into the forest, he had only a small chocolate bar in his pocket. He ate it on the first day, which gave him enough energy to keep going. After that, he had nothing. He found shelter under a larch tree, a smart move that protected him from the freezing night air. Imagine a child, alone in a vast forest, figuring out how to stay warm without anyone teaching him. That's exactly what Saren did. The forest is not just cold, it's also full of dangers. Wolves and bears are known to roam the area. A 3-year-old child wouldn't stand a chance against them. Yet somehow, Saren stayed out of harm's way. It's unclear how he avoided becoming prey, but his survival feels almost like a miracle. As the search continued, the rescuers grew desperate. They scoured every corner of the forest. Saren's uncle played a crucial role, calling out the boy's name and refusing to give up. On the third day, something incredible happened. Saren heard his uncle's voice and responded. When the rescue team found him, he was about 3 kilometers away from his village. He was standing near a riverbank, surprisingly calm for a child who had been through such an ordeal. Saren's condition shocked everyone. After 3 days alone, he was still alive and in good health. He was cold and tired, but showed no signs of major injury. Rescuers took him to a hospital for observation. Doctors confirmed he was fine, which seemed unbelievable given the circumstances. When Saren was reunited with his family, his first concern wasn't about the adventure or the dangers he faced. He asked about his favorite toy car, which he had left at home. This innocent question reminded everyone of how young he truly was. Despite his bravery, he was still just a child. The local community celebrated Saren's safe return. They saw his survival as a miracle. Even the head of the Tuva Republic, Sholban Karaul, praised the boy's resilience. He said Saren's story showed the strength of the human spirit, even in the youngest among us. The village planned a celebration in his honor, a way to thank everyone who helped bring him home. Saren's story quickly spread beyond his small village. News outlets around the world covered the incredible tale. Many compared him to Mowgli from The Jungle Book, a boy who survived in the wild. Reporters highlighted the harsh conditions of the Siberian taiga and marveled at how a toddler managed to stay alive. The story captivated audiences everywhere, reminding people of the power of hope and determination. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then check out these videos on the screen now. If you have a topic suggestion, please send it to the email in the description. And as always, remember to like, comment, share the video, and subscribe to our channel. And remember, the only thing scarier than these stories is missing out on our next video.